The Percy Jackson series on Disney Plus just released its third episode entitled We Board the Princess Andromeda, which is actually chapter 8 of the Sea of Monsters book. This takes place immediately after what we left off in episode 2, when Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson took a boat to the cruise ship the Princess Andromeda. I just watched episode 3, and it's another amazing installment to this TV show. And in this video, I'll be breaking it down while reviewing it to you guys. Before getting into it though, I had to give a spoiler warning for the books because this episode touched upon a lot of things from the books, so you've been warned. And with that, let's get started. The first scene we get from this episode is Clarisse LaRue in the attic with the Oracle of Delphi. Interestingly, we also saw this room of the Oracle of Delphi in episode 3 of the first season, so that's a pretty funny coincidence I just noticed now. Anyway, going back to the episode, this seems actually not in the book, but we do know that Clarisse went to the Oracle for a prophecy, so adding this scene is actually a really cool idea that I like. As Clarisse walks over to the Oracle, I just love how creepy the Oracle looks, especially since Clarisse slashes it with her sword and the Oracle still lives. This actually confused some viewers when watching, because, to be fair, how the heck is the Oracle still alive after Clarisse attacked her? So I'll just explain over here. This Oracle right here did not always look like this. She used to be a young mortal girl around World War II, and she was the being that announced the Great Prophecy, or the prophecy that the 5 books of PJO center around. This prophecy talks about a demigod child of the Big Three, or Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, who would one day turn 16 and make a decision that would either destroy or save Olympus. In response to this threat, the gods made a pact to never sire any more demigod children, but there was one problem. Hades already had demigod children, through Nico and Bianca D'Angelo, and Zeus had told Hades to send them to Camp Haplet for proper training and protection. However, Hades mistrusted Zeus, and instead, he decided to keep Nico and Bianca to himself. Hades brought his kids and their mother, Maria D'Angelo, to a hotel room, but this ended in tragedy. Zeus got angry at Hades for disobeying him, and in his rage, he struck the hotel to kill Nico and Bianca. Hades managed to create a force field that saved the kids, but it didn't spare Maria D'Angelo. As Hades realized she was dead, the Oracle of Delphi suddenly appeared to him. In his grief and anger, Hades cursed the Oracle's host, saying that as long as he had to labor under the Great Prophecy, the spirit of Delphi would never move on to another host, meaning that she would have to keep saying prophecies until the Great Prophecy was completed. And this happened many decades before the PJO series, but since the Great Prophecy hasn't happened, she's stuck here saying prophecies. And that also explains why even if Clarisse attacked her, she's left unaffected and will say the prophecy no matter what. Going to the prophecy, I was surprised that Clarisse herself was the one who appeared from the Oracle. For Percy, the Oracle showed him his stepdad gave Agliano, but we never really had much of an explanation for it. So here's my interpretation. This is not really canon and this is just my thoughts, but I think the Oracle appears as something you despise the most. And that's why it's Gabe for Percy. Percy hates Gabe so much in the books, and I think it adds up here with Clarisse seeing herself. It could hint on the idea that Clarisse hates herself the most, which references just how much pressure she was under from herself and her father. It could have came to a point that she hated who she was because she was trying so hard to please her dad. Again, just my interpretation, so let me know in the comments on your thoughts here. Going back though, the prophecy is pretty much the same word for word, and I'll flash the lines here. You shall sail the iron ship with warriors of bone. You shall find what you seek and make it your own. But despair for your life entombed within stone, and fail without friends to fly home alone. They actually cut the last line in the episode, and I wonder why. I guess they're going to reveal it later on in the show, because it's a pretty chilling line if you ask me. I'm not going to explain it because I want to see how they handle the prophecy in the future, but for the rest of the lines, they got it word for word, and I like that. Moving on from this, we finally get back to Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson. The 3 of them board Luke's ship, and I have to say, the Princess Andromeda looks pretty accurate to how I imagined it. And like in the book, this ship housed monsters that sided with Kronos. As the trio settle in a room, we get an interesting conversation between Percy and Annabeth. Percy talks about what happened in the previous episode, specifically about the idea that Annabeth knew something that Percy should not know about. And I want to talk about their conversation here. Here, Percy seems okay with the idea that he wouldn't know what's up, and that kind of adds up in the book as well. In the book, Percy was annoyed that Chiron and Annabeth kept that as a secret, but he also trusted them both enough to let it pass. Interestingly, Percy also mentions that they could use a code word just in case Percy was about to make a decision that would lead to the prophecy, and he chose the word boon. It actually made me laugh for a bit because it directly references what Annabeth told him before the chariot race in the previous episode. Annabeth explained what boon meant, and Percy didn't really get it at first, so using it here was a nice touch even if it wasn't really in the book. But I like it though because it shows Percy's trust in Annabeth, because he in turn trusts Chiron's advice to her. Moving on from this, I also want to mention the Ares and Clarisse scenes together. If you've read the books, then you would know that Ares was pressuring her to complete the quest, and it was pretty much hinted on over here. The moment Clarisse saw Ares, she bowed and knelt in front of him, which is exactly what she would do as well in the books. I also mentioned previously in my old reviews of Season 1 that I like Adam Copeland's portrayal of Ares, but I think the show is making him a bit of a comic relief, and he doesn't really feel like the fully intimidating Ares that we felt in the book. Like, in the show, I don't really feel threatened or affected by Ares in a negative light. He's actually pretty hilarious in Season 1's Episode 5, whereas in the book, the same scene made me feel annoyed yet intimidated by him. But don't get me wrong, I think Adam is a great actor and he's doing his best with the script he was given, so I think what could be improved is the script itself. Give him more lines that show the Ares who is demanding, intimidating, and ruthless. He's already there, and I just want them to crank it up a little bit more. The only moment that really made me pause and see the darker side of Ares is when he stares Clarisse down and practically threatens her, as he says she knows what happens if she doesn't succeed, to which Clarisse bows her head in response. When I saw this moment, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the Ares I remember, and I want more of these moments to really solidify their relationship. Moving on though, the dead soldiers look incredible, and they're actually pretty diverse. In the book, they were specifically the dead Confederates, but the show became more inclusive to add different soldiers from different time periods, which I found really interesting. Speaking of those soldiers, I also really liked that scene where they all sing together, because the lyrics were pretty good. They sing, "Fare thee well, we wish thee well, we hail we sail from Asphodel, we take our tack and easy rum, sailing towards Elysium." Asphodel and Elysium are taken straight from Greek mythology, and I'll explain it here. The Fields of Asphodel is a place in the underworld where ordinary souls go to. These souls were once people who were either not too evil or not too heroic, which is why they wander mindlessly down this path after they die. Elysium, on the other hand, is the best place to go in the afterlife in Greek mythology. It's a realm of heroes who died bravely for the greater good, and that's why the soldiers are saying it here. They're from Asphodel, as they lived a mediocre life, and they want to set sail towards Elysium to get glory. One interesting detail they included was the idea that Clarisse couldn't command the soldiers easily, and that wasn't something from the book, but it was a nice detail that made the next scene with Clarisse stronger. There, Clarisse made a speech that led her crew to her side, and it was pretty satisfying to see because all of them had one thing in common. They all wanted to get glory. Clarisse's moments here in this episode were not from the book at all, because we always follow Percy's side of the story, so getting expanded scenes with Clarisse is actually really interesting. After this, we get back to Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson. While walking around the ship, they came across Allison Sims, or the demigod daughter of Apollo, who was actually not in the books at all. She was made solely for the show, and you finally got a proper introduction to her. Annabeth and Allison actually recognize each other, and Allison almost leads them into a trap before Percy suddenly remembers the first scene from the first episode of Season 2. This moment was when Grover met Allison and her group of demigods in the wilderness, and because of the empathy link, Percy actually witnessed this moment in a dream. Realizing this, Percy deduced that Allison was leading them to a trap, and then we get a pretty good fight scene. Allison attacks them with a knife, and even if it was a pretty exciting moment because we got to see Allison's fighting skills, I also think that they could have done a lot more with it. They should have made the fight a bit longer, and at the same time, I wish that they made Percy's fighting skills also shine. Percy is a very skilled fighter in the book, even around this part of the series. He literally defeated the Minotaur without any training, and beat the god of war Ares in his first month as a demigod. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not against making Allison look powerful because she is older than the two of them, and she is very skilled, but I wish they could have shown Percy at least fighting back a little bit more, because he isn't helpless. He's actually pretty damn good in a fight, even at this early on in the series. And Annabeth is also really skilled with her dagger. She's been training since she was 7 in Camp Haplid. I really think they could have shown more of her skill here and make her fight harder. Like, Annabeth would have wounded Allison at least once realistically in the book. Also, they're in the middle of the ocean. This is pretty much Percy's domain. I really think they could have utilized Percy's powers a lot more than they do so far, and I hope we see him use his powers later on. Going back to the episode though, they defeated Allison after throwing her off the ship, which, okay, that was pretty cool. But still, I think they could have shown that Allison was powerful, but at the same time showed that Annabeth and Percy can respond well to a powerful threat. Like, I think the fight could have gone with Allison showing off just how powerful she is, and then Percy and Annabeth responding to it and actually fighting back a bit more. But anyway, this soon leads us to a pretty good scene. We see them uncover the scythe or Kronos' symbol, and this wasn't really a thing in the book, but I love the addition. It really highlights the idea that Kronos is on the ship with them, which we get to see later on. We then get an interesting conversation between Percy and Annabeth. Realizing that Luke is on the ship, Percy tells Annabeth a plan. They were going to take out Luke and end the problem once and for all, but this sounded different to Annabeth. Annabeth tells Percy that they can't kill Luke, and this when we see just how different Annabeth and Percy see the situation. Annabeth still believes that Luke can be saved somehow, while Percy thinks Luke is gone. This is very accurate to the book because Annabeth loves Luke, but they kind of tweaked up their relationship in the show. And let me explain. In the book, Annabeth had a huge crush on Luke, but the show removed it and instead declared that Annabeth saw Luke like a big brother, which is one of the best changes in my opinion. I went on about Annabeth and Luke's weird romantic dynamic before in my character analysis of Luke, but I'm saying it again. The romance aspect between Annabeth and Luke is pretty weird, so I really like the idea of removing the romance entirely. I would even argue that making them have more of a familial bond will make it more heartbreaking instead of the crush aspect. Like, as Annabeth said, watching Luke poison Thalia was like watching her brother stab her sister in the back. It's extra painful with this layer of family. But going back, we soon got a confrontation with Luke, and I had to give a nice shout out to Charlie Bushnell, or Luke's actor. He did a great job in the scene as Luke, especially when they were talking about Thalia. Surprisingly, Luke even called out Annabeth, telling her that she knew nothing about Thalia because Thalia was with Luke for 2 years, while Annabeth was with them for only 2 months. He actually has a pretty good point, and that must have been brutal to Annabeth, because Annabeth always saw him and Thalia as family despite the short time they had together. Not gonna lie, I also love how Luke looks absolutely heartbroken whenever he talks about Thalia, because there's a lot of history there. Luke and Thalia were best friends who protected each other from monster attacks, and it's even hinted in the books that they could have been more than friends, but that future was broken once Luke poisoned Thalia's tree and sided with Kronos. Interestingly, Luke even highlights how Thalia would have joined him as well with Kronos, because Thalia hated the gods, and that's a detail straight from the book. Luke believed that Thalia would join him, which is why in the next book, or the Titan's Curse, Luke even tells Thalia that the Thalia he knew before would have joined him, but Thalia refused. Going back to the episode though, Luke led them to this underground area, wherein monsters and demigods were training together. Now, this is a really interesting scene as Luke tells them that he's making a golden age with Kronos, and this golden age was also what mythology used to describe Kronos' reign. It was a great age after Kronos overthrew his father Uranus, and it's a pretty cool callback. Also, we see Tyson hang out with the Laestrygonian giants, and he helps them make a fireball, and Luke talks about this, saying that this future will have all creatures equally treated just like monsters like Tyson. But as he goes on about this, the place suddenly explodes because Tyson made a bomb. Now, this is insane, but this is probably my most favorite scene in the episode. That was some amazing quick thinking from Tyson, and at the same time, it truly showed his craftsmanship ability, which is his huge strength in the books as well, as Cyclopses were known to be inventors. After this, we see them escape, and we get our last scene. Percy and Annabeth talk about the Great Prophecy, as Luke had actually mentioned it earlier. Surprisingly, Annabeth tells Percy details about it despite Chiron's warning, and I'm not really sure what to feel about this. I think it's nice as a book reader to hear about the Great Prophecy in this moment, but plot-wise, Percy's not supposed to know about it this early. He's supposed to know these details little by little, but Annabeth almost says lines of the prophecy, so I'm hoping this is the most they touch upon because I don't want them to really explain everything right now. Ultimately though, I think this conversation was pretty well written, and it even adds a chilling cliffhanger as Percy tells Annabeth that he wished he didn't know about it, and the episode ends there. Overall, that was another solid episode. I liked seeing the Princess Andromeda, the talk about Thalia was a nice touch, Charlie Bushnell's performance as Luke was honestly really good, Tyson's quick thinking at the end with the bomb was just genius, And I love the dynamic with Percy and Annabeth, especially with their different perspectives on Luke. However, I think I like the previous 2 episodes more than this one, so I'm rating it a 9 out of 10. Pretty good, but I kinda wish there was more. Like, seriously. This episode is the shortest so far, and I think they should have utilized the 1 hour more. But still, a great installment to a great series, and I'm honestly pretty excited for more. So how about you? What do you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments down below.